There's a moment right after you've been disrespected, a moment that feels like an open wound. Your heart races, your mind floods with words you want to say, actions you want to take, and in that moment you make a choice. You speak or you stay silent. Most people think silence is weakness. They think if you don't respond, you've lost. But that's not true. The truth is, silence after disrespect doesn't kill you. It kills them. It forces them to sit with their own behavior. It takes away the reaction they were hoping for. It exposes them to themselves. But not all silence is powerful. There's a dangerous kind of silence, the silence that happens when you swallow your pain, when you let the disrespect sink into your bones, when you accept the mistreatment as if it's normal. That kind of silence is not strength. That kind of silence is surrender. So the question isn't whether you should be silent. The question is, what kind of silence are you choosing? Because real silence, the kind that shakes people to their core, is the silence of someone who knows their worth, someone who doesn't need to argue their value, someone who doesn't let disrespect become their identity. That kind of silence isn't passive, it's a pause before action. It's the space where confidence grows, where decisions are made, where battles are won, not by fighting back, but by walking away with dignity intact. See, disrespect is a game. And when you engage, when you argue, when you let it consume you, you're playing by their rules. But when you refuse to play, when you step back and let your actions, not your words, show who you are, that's when they start to crumble. Because nothing unsettles a person more than someone who refuses to be controlled. The strongest response to disrespect is knowing when to stay silent and when to speak in a way that demands respect without ever begging for it. That's the kind of silence that doesn't just protect you, destroys their ability to hurt you. And that's the silence that wins every time. Your response holds power. It shapes the narrative. It decides whether disrespect is given a place to grow or a moment to die. Every reaction is a choice between fueling the fire or letting it burn out. Most people believe that responding immediately is the only way to maintain dignity. They think that if they don't clap back, they've lost the battle. But real strength isn't in how fast you respond, it's in how well you respond. It's in the control you exercise over your emotions when everything inside you screams for retaliation. Disrespect thrives on reaction. It feeds off emotion. The more energy you give it, the more power it holds over you. But when you master your response, when you take a step back instead of engaging in the heat of the moment, you take away the very thing that gives disrespect its strength. Your response isn't just about words. It's about presence. It's about the energy you allow into your space. Some battles aren't worth fighting because the moment you step into them, you lower yourself to the level of the one who started it. And when that happens, they win. Not because they were right, but because they pulled you into a game you never had to play. Mastering your response doesn't mean ignoring the disrespect. It doesn't mean allowing mistreatment to continue. It means responding in a way that serves you, not in a way that satisfies them. It means knowing when to walk away, when to address it with power, and when to let silence do the work. The real test isn't in what they say or do, it's in how you choose to answer. Disrespect is more than just words. It's more than an insult, a dismissive glance, or a condescending tone. It's an attack on identity, a direct challenge to a person's dignity. It lingers far beyond the moment it happens, seeping into thoughts, replaying in the mind, making a person question their worth. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. A joke at your expense, a backhanded compliment, being ignored in a room where your presence should matter. It chips away at confidence, little by little, until self-doubt replaces certainty. That's the real weight of disrespect. It doesn't just bruise the ego, it burdens the soul. Some people shake it off, they act like it doesn't matter. But deep down, every person has felt the sting of being undermined, of being treated as less than they are. And when it happens often enough, it starts to shift the way they see themselves. Not because the words were true, but because repetition makes anything feel real. That's why disrespect is dangerous. It's not about the moment, it's about what it leaves behind. It plants doubt where confidence used to be. It creates hesitation where there was once boldness. And when a person starts believing they are worth less than they truly are, they begin to accept treatment they never should. It's easy to say, just don't take it personally. But that's not how the mind works. Humans are wired for connection, for recognition, for respect. When that is denied, it creates an imbalance. The weight of it builds up over time, pressing down on self-worth, making even the strongest question their place in the world. And yet, the true danger isn't just in receiving disrespect. It's in letting it redefine who you are. The words, the dismissals, the underestimations, they are reflections of the person giving them, not the person receiving them. The weight only stays when it is carried. The moment it is recognized for what it is, someone else's insecurity projected outward, it begins to lose its power. Silence is often misunderstood. People assume it means submission, that it's the absence of power. But silence, when used intentionally, is one of the strongest responses a person can give. It forces the other person to sit with their own words, to wrestle with the weight of what they've done. When someone disrespects you, they expect a reaction: anger, frustration, an argument. That reaction feeds their power, validates their behavior, and keeps the cycle going. But when silence follows disrespect, it disrupts their expectations. It creates a void, an uncomfortable space where they are left alone with their own actions. But silence can also be dangerous, not for them, but for you. When silence is chosen out of fear, when it becomes a habit of swallowing pain, it turns into something corrosive. It starts to eat away at self-worth, making a person feel invisible, like their feelings don't matter. This kind of silence doesn't take power away from the disrespectful. It gives it to them. It lets them believe their words and actions have no consequences. It enables them to continue unchecked while the person on the receiving end absorbs the damage. There is a fine line between powerful silence and destructive silence. The difference is intention. If silence is chosen as a tool of self-restraint, as a way to disengage and rise above, it becomes a statement stronger than any words. But if silence is the result of feeling powerless, if it comes from a place of fear or self-doubt, it slowly erodes confidence, making disrespect feel normal. The key is to recognize which silence is at play. One kind makes the other person uncomfortable, forcing them to confront their actions. The other makes you uncomfortable, forcing you to carry a burden that was never yours to hold. One kind takes back control, the other hands it over. The challenge isn't just whether to stay silent, it's understanding whether your silence is protecting you or harming you. Disrespect is never just about words or actions, it's about power. It's about control. Those who belittle, insult, or undermine others aren't just expressing opinions. They're testing boundaries, seeing how much space they can take and how much they can strip away from someone else. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it comes disguised as a joke, a passive-aggressive remark, or a dismissive glance. Other times, it's loud, direct, meant to humiliate. But no matter the form, the goal is the same: to assert dominance, to make the other person feel small. The people who resort to disrespect aren't strong. They may seem confident, fearless, untouchable, but beneath that, there's always something fragile. An insecurity, a fear, an emptiness they are trying to mask. They don't disrespect because they have power. They disrespect because they feel they don't have enough of it. So, they try to take it from others. And the more they get a reaction, the more powerful they feel. This is why silence after disrespect is so unsettling for them. They expect a fight. They expect anger, defensiveness, retaliation, because that means they've succeeded in provoking a response. But silence? Silence leaves them with nothing to feed on. It forces them to face their own insecurity without distraction. And that's something they can't handle. The moment disrespect is met with indifference, with an unshaken sense of self-worth, the dynamic shifts. The one who tried to take power suddenly finds themselves powerless. The one who was supposed to be weakened remains strong. Because in the end, it was never about the words spoken. It was about who was truly in control. Disrespect doesn't just create an external conflict, it creates an internal battle. It forces a person to choose between reacting on impulse or responding with control, between defending their pride or protecting their peace. The real struggle isn't with the person who disrespects you. It's with yourself. It's the tension between wanting to prove them wrong and knowing that their opinion doesn't define you. When someone disrespects you, there's an immediate emotional response: anger, frustration, maybe even doubt. The words echo, the actions replay in your mind. It's natural to want to react, to say something that puts them in their place. But the real battle isn't won in the moment. It's won in how you process it afterward. Do you carry it with you, letting it linger in your thoughts, questioning your worth? Or do you recognize it for what it is, an attempt to pull you into someone else's insecurity? The most dangerous thing about disrespect isn't the moment it happens. It's what it does to your mindset if you let it take root. One comment, one dismissive look, one moment of being treated like you don't matter, if left unchallenged in your own mind, can start to shape your self-perception. And that's when the real damage begins. Not because they were right, but because you started to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were. The key to winning this internal battle isn't about proving anything to them. It's about proving something to yourself. that no amount of disrespect can redefine your value, that silence, when chosen from a place of confidence, is more powerful than any argument, that walking away doesn't mean weakness, it means you refuse to let someone else's smallness shrink you. Silence is not always surrender. It can be the most powerful statement a person makes, but there's a difference between silence that commands respect and silence that allows disrespect to continue unchecked. The right kind of silence isn't about avoidance, it's about control. It's the kind of silence that speaks louder than words, that forces the other person to confront their own behavior without giving them the satisfaction of a reaction. When used correctly, silence is strategic. It removes the power from the person trying to provoke you. It denies them the reaction they seek. But silence should never mean tolerating mistreatment. It should never be the result of fear or self-doubt. When silence becomes a habit of swallowing pain, it turns into something toxic, something that erodes confidence and makes disrespect feel normal. There are moments when silence is the best response, when it shows strength and self-respect. But there are also moments when speaking up is necessary, when silence only enables the other person to continue. The key is knowing the difference. Knowing when your silence is making them uncomfortable and when it's only making you disappear. Disrespect is a test. It challenges how much a person is willing to accept, how much they value themselves. The right kind of silence is not about backing down. It's about standing firm without wasting energy on those who don't deserve it. And it's about choosing your battles wisely and ensuring that, whether through words or silence, your response reinforces your worth rather than diminishes it. Your voice is one of your greatest tools, but knowing when to use it is just as important as knowing when to withhold it. Disrespect demands a response, but not every response requires words. Some moments call for silence, silence that unsettles, silence that denies the other person the reaction they crave. Other moments demand that you speak, not to argue, not to seek validation, but to establish a boundary that cannot be ignored. The difference between power and passivity is intention. If silence is chosen as a means of self-respect, it becomes a statement. If words are chosen with wisdom and control, they become a force. The key is not whether to respond, but how. A person who knows their worth doesn't react impulsively, they respond with purpose. They don't waste energy proving themselves to those who will never listen. Instead, they decide what is worth their time, their breath, and their peace. Disrespect only holds power when it is given attention. A well-placed silence can be more deafening than a loud response. A well-spoken truth can dismantle the weight of an insult. But when someone learns to balance the two, when they master both silence and speech, they become unshakable. Because the real victory isn't just about shutting someone down, it's about walking away with your confidence intact, knowing that no amount of disrespect can shake the foundation of who you are. Irrespective of a test, but it's also an opportunity to show what truly holds power, your reaction or your restraint. Those who seek to diminish others rely on impulsive responses, on emotional reactions that fuel their sense of control. But the moment you recognize that your value isn't up for debate, you take away their power. Silence, when chosen with confidence, speaks volumes. Words, when used with wisdom, set unshakable boundaries. The goal is not to fight for validation, but to carry yourself in a way that demands it without a single word. Because in the end, the loudest statement you can make is knowing when to walk away, when to speak up, and when to let your presence, your self-respect, and your unwavering sense of worth do all the talking.